Okay, so let's go to our earnings time spreads for the month. So we took 3 earnings time spreads. Tesla, VKTX, and WDC in that order. So I'm going to go to my PowerPoint over here, and we're going to take a look at the setup for these stocks. So here's a setup for Tesla. It was a borderline setup, I would say, because I like everything about it except the fact that the difference was 40. Real time, it ended up being about 45. I think the OSP gets the information beginning of the day, but there are some changes to IV throughout the day. So I typically like a difference of at least 50, but was right below that. But, I said, hey, this is close enough. I think this is a good opportunity. So I got the fill in over here. You can see the 247.5 calls for a $2.50 debit, filled 11:30 a.m. And I exited the next day for a $1.35 credit, so about a 55% loss on the stock. This is the key bar in the open, and this is the trade I made. I said, look, we got a gap down. If Tesla can rally back into the gap, it's going to do it probably on the first candle. Now, first candle, red. And I said, look, I'm just getting out of the trade. I could leg out, so I could let this ride, close my short calls, and then wait for the long calls to ride up. And we can take a look at how that would have done. So here's Tesla on the open. So you could have closed it here, rode it back up, and probably target that 8 EMA. So maybe that could have worked. But I was like, look, I don't want to leg out. I'm just going to take the 55% loss right here in the open, and I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to focus on what's going to happen today. So pretty happy. I don't think I would change anything about this strategy. I had a plan. I knew what I wanted to see. I didn't see it, and I took the loss. So I'm going to work on legging out later, but right now I'm just going to treat most of these fairly straight up, not really doing a lot of leg outs. Going to keep them more on the minimal side. That we have a good understanding of how time spreads works without legging out, and once I get that foundational basis, then I can look to increase my chance of success by legging out at the right time. Second one here, VKTX, took this on 724. Really nice setup, I thought. Low times exceeded, 0%, super high difference Thursday. So on Thursday, baseline target is about 40%. And because the difference was so high, I actually set it for a 50% target. And expected move is 20%. So now we have this first move at the open. We closed around about 51. And then we opened right here around 59-ish. And this first candle again was key because we got a big gap up. I'm waiting to see, are we going to move back down to the range? We're going to break through that SMA. Let's take a look at VKTX on this daily chart here. So here is the move on VKTX. So here's the move. And again, you could wait. I mean, you probably don't have enough time, but you could have let the... Yeah, it wouldn't have worked out because even if you've let this expire, you would have just had long calls and it would have not quite hit the mark. But here's that test here. We hit the 50 SMA and we rejected back up. So that is when I took the loss intraday here. And I wanted to see a red candle closing on its low. If I got that, I would be doing pretty well. Now, I had a chance to take some small profits when there was a red candle. The credit was about $1.15, so could have taken maybe a 15% loss or 15% win, but I didn't want to... that wasn't really my plan going in. If I saw a red candle, I would have stuck with it on knowing that this has a pretty good chance to continue downward, and I could probably hit my 50% target as it gets closer to maybe 54 or 53. Now, when we got this candle, I took the small loss, 20%, and I'm pretty happy with that. My average percent win is about a 35 to 36% win. That's my average across my time spread. So if my loss is lower than my average win, that's going to be really, really nice for my profit factor. Now, I did have the potential to leg out and take a massive profit. You can see how much it rallied, but there's just a bunch of TA in the way. We had our AVWAP, or actually AVOQ was being set, but we had some horizontal support here, had this 100-day SMA, came back up to this upward sloping trend line, so just didn't feel as comfortable legging out of that. rather take the small loss. So we saw two examples here where I could have legged out, potentially taking a profit or a smaller loss. And after I get a good list of time spreads, once I get about 30, 40, 50 setups and I go back and I can analyze it, then I can determine how many of my wins or how many of my losers would have been improved by legging out. Last one here, WDC. So this is a pretty standard setup. Beautiful setup here. 0 times exceeded, high difference, good option liquidity. Took the $65 calls for a 35-cent debit. Exited the next day for a small gain. I would say 17% is not a huge gain on the stock. This was on the 31st. Took it on the 1st, so that's a Thursday. So we could have got closer to 40% on that guy. Stock gap down. And then the first candle, look at this. First candle is green, so I'm like, okay, that's good. Second candle red, testing that 50 SMA, not good. That's when I take the small win. So was a little bit too panicky on that. Had a chance to get out for closer to a 50 to 55% credit at that peak here when it came back to test the high of the day. And when it even stalled, I would say when it stalled in this next candle here, the fourth candle of the day, that's when you can also take your profits. But usually you have a floating order out. So I think I had a chance to get maybe a 15 to 20% credit on this guy, which could have been an easy 50% win on WDC. So missed that opportunity, but that's okay. That happens. So those were the earnings time spreads for July. How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a great day. We are going to be looking at our July trades, a very long overdue video, but better late than never. So there's going to be 3 parts to it because I did 3 different types of trades. The first will be swings, then earnings time spreads, and then day trades. Day trades, we're going to take a look at the trading view charts because they have 6 months of intraday data that we can take a look at. I believe OSP only goes back to the last month or 45 days or so. So we can use that for August, but not necessarily July. So let's take a look at the swings first. Okay, first swing we had was a put credit spread on AMD. So couple things here. We took this spread on the 2nd, and here is the market. Where is the market on the 2nd? So this was the setup that we had in the stock and in the market. Our bias was that this stock would stay below the 170 level for the next 2 weeks. We took the 719, 170, 175 call credit spread for a $1.10 credit. So what happened? Well, the market soared up higher, so we got the market wrong. The stock broke through, pushed up a little bit higher, and then actually ended up sinking back below. I believe there was a negative earnings reaction here on the 17th. I'm forgetting which company it was, but there I really did pull quite a bit of semis down. So had I stayed in the trade until the 19th, I would have made a full profit. Now, on this breakout, I didn't know if we're going to sustain it or we were going to fall back in, and I believe that trading event that happened, that earnings reaction, the peer reaction, right? The reaction to peer earnings. That's a bit of a binary event. So I knew that was in my game plan. I knew that was a possibility, but I didn't know which way it may go. So took it here and we legged out on the 8th. We legged out close to the end of the day, and then I took a smaller loss on the 10th, kind of right at the open. So overall, I'd say that I played the leg out decently well. I mean, if I can take a smaller loss than a max loss on a leg out, then I am happy about it. So I ended up with a $1.19 loss, and my credit was $1.10. So matched the credit pretty well, pretty happy about that. However, I did have a chance to take profit, and I did take profit in 2 ways. So I'm going to first show really the intraday chart of AMD on that day. So we're going to take a look on the 8th, and I want to take a look at SPY on the 8th as well. All right, so here is SPY on the 8th. Market is going down, AMD is actually holding its own pretty well on the 8th, and so has a lot of relative strength. So when it starts to put in this double bottom higher low, we start to break through VWAP pretty much around 1. You see how the market is also putting in the double bottom and it's starting to rally up a little bit. So that's not a bad place to exit out, in my opinion. I also don't mind exiting it out, legging out over here. We got a smackdown over here. We actually didn't fall back too hard. And at this point of this smackdown, I actually didn't know if we were going to make a double top here or if we were going to break through. So here's an LPTE day. Market actually ends up breaking through. AMD is quite strong earlier in the day, and then it kind of pauses for a little bit. So even if I held towards the end of the day here, I would have had a chance to get pretty decent profits on that. So probably could have scratched out or even taken a win on this guy. I just didn't know if this would break through or not. So it's one of those judgment calls I think you have to be kind of planning before that. And I wasn't really quite willing to take the loss if this was a double top and it broke through that level. So that's my AMD call credit spread. So ended up being a loss, but that had the potential to be a win. Second one that I took here was SMCI. This was a overnight swing that I took on the 8th. So here's the 8th, and here is the 8th on this. So market is pretty dead at this point. It's made a pretty big move. SMCI was poking through, but fell down and it tested that 100-day SMA. Just going to look at SMCI intraday here. So you can see the setup. So strong surge in the open, pullback test. We got a higher low, breaking through this high over here. It breaks out, but we don't get a ton of follow through. We actually fall back into the range. So I take it somewhere around here, off this bounce, kind of off support around over here, but doesn't quite confirm. So I take it around 913, take a little bit of heat on it, and then I take a small win at 916 on the open. Stock does end up testing the high, so did take a small win. The best thing I could have done probably was to set an alert closer to the high of the day. So looking at somewhere like even 920 or even 922 would have been some pretty good way to put it, 923. That would have been a nice place to tag just right below the high of the day. So somewhere here where I can get a nice fill. It's probably going to test that level. Ended up actually breaking through here, got to about 930. So had a chance to get a little bit of decent profits on that, but was a very tiny win on SMCI and actually ended up avoiding a pretty big fall in that stock. So tiny win, was a pretty dead day in the market, so a quick overnight win. Didn't quite confirm, and my suspicion was right to be weary of that breakout. Okay, this was probably the best swing that I took this month. This was snow. So here is the breakdown and the setup on snow. So bearish stock had a bit of a bounce, rejected off the 50 SMA below its AVWAP E, breaking down through compression on the 18th. The only thing that's not great, didn't have a ton of volume on this breakdown, relative at least to the market as well. So here is the market on the 18th. So that's what it's looking like. Pauses, pullbacks up to the 8 EMA for the couple of days, and then we get the nice sell-off on the 24th. And that's where I take profits on this next leg lower. And I think I played this pretty well. I picked a good stock, I got the market right, and I was able to make good profits on that trade. You could have the rationale, maybe you could have held it until the first, but market bias wasn't just quite that. We had the 50 SMA. I thought we could hold support here, and that was my target. So pretty happy with that pick. Also, it was also quite close to support. Took profits. I got in around 130. Took profits around 126. So that was a nice about $1 ATR move. Yeah, I'll do the same exact thing next time as well. No qualms about that. JMIA. So pretty nice pick. Took it on the 22nd, And I made two mistakes here. The first one is that I had a small ad on the 26th. So what happened with JMIA? Well, we took it on the 22nd, which was right here. So first of all, the market is a little bearish, but I thought this was a pullback in a shorter term trend. So as a setup, I thought, all right, we have some room to the trend line. We could probably continue up over here. Market is flat. JMIA test over here. Pretty high volume candle over here. We get the breakdown over the next 2 days. JMI pulls back, but it holds this horizontal level. So I'm leaning on this low of about 1171. So about $1, about a 1 ATR move here. So fine with that. Fine with that level. Fine with that hold. Stock bounces a little bit. Here is where I add to the stock. I add on this bounce. It's showing relative strength. It's bouncing off this level. It didn't make a new low. Well, I mean, it made a marginal new low relative to the market, but it held this level versus the market actually poked below the 50 SMA. So I liked what I was seeing here. I added to the stock. And then it actually ended up breaking and not really following through. Ended up breaking on the first, and this is what happened here. So stock is leaking lower. It makes a new relative low. Market has a big bearish trend day, big bearish engulf. Still makes a higher low than what's over here. And this stock breaks below that level. So this is where I should have taken the loss. I took the loss here at about 1060. Should have taken the loss over here on the close at 1111. So that would have saved me about 50 cents. I want to take a look at the JMIA intraday chart. And we are going to go to the first over here. Yeah, you can see how we have just steady selling intraday, and we never quite gain anything back on that day. Let's back up over here. And I want to go to the market as well. Let's go to the market on the first. Market, very, very steady selling, very bearish trend day. So the fact that we're getting a lot of momentum and we're closing through this, I think a bearish trend day, stock has broken through volume. It's not showing any sort of relative strength. It's probably actually a pretty good short, to be quite honest. That's when I got to take the loss and get out of the trade here on that day. Stock tries to stage a rally, tries to fill in the gap here, can't quite do it, and gets rejected. So this is my second opportunity to take that loss around 11 bucks. So that was a mistake. I took the loss too soon, and I added a little bit too much. So that made what should have been a normal loss a little bit bigger. That was a mistake on that stock. ASTS. So I took this long on when did I take this long over here on 726. So I took it when the market was moving back up. Where's 726? Yeah, so not really the best market setup. We're trading against the trend. This is by the way, the stock picks I think are really good. The problem was I'm really compromising my probability by going against that longer term market tailwind, or at least the shorter term trend right now. So there are two ways to play it. One, avoid it. Or two, you have to take a very quick win in the stock, right? So here's my chance, high of 20. So I got in about 1880. Here's the high of 2037. So that's about $1.60. ATR, that's about a 1 ATR move, right? So I should have taken my low profits, got back out of the trade. Especially considering, what's kind of happening on the 30th over here. This was a crazy move on the 31st, I should say. And that was also my second opportunity to get out of the trade while I could. Now, my reasoning here, which is pretty obvious, is that, look, we formed this double bottom, and I think we're going to rally up a little bit higher. So that was my rationale to the trade. But you see that we actually broke through, and the bottom did end up falling out. Did end up falling out on the 5th. So that's when I took the loss. I took the loss on the 5th, and stock was holding up really well. So at this point, my bias was that, oh man, we're still going to keep going down. No, what I should have done is actually held the stock, and you can see that it ends up actually getting all the way to back to this high and moving back up in the trend because we have the market tailwind now. And then after this, we have earnings. So you want to take your lumps while you can get it. And get this close again, right? We get this high 22.36, 21. So the high is going up a little bit higher here. We have a good chance to take some profits. So I just got out over here when it either should have gotten out earlier or should have held later. So I didn't really time it with the cycles that well. The great thing is my pick was so good that it ended up being, not a big loss. Ended up taking a pretty small loss, but got the market wrong and I got the timing wrong. So I think if I were to do it back again, I just would have been more nimble with this stock, to be honest. This is the wrong time to be really holding through it. So those are the swing trading picks for this month. All right, guys, we are going to go over the day trades now for July. So we had 9 day trades in total, starting with Goldman Sachs on July 9th. So for this, because I don't have the M5 data on OSP this far back, we're just going to look at trading view for the intraday chart. We should get a lot of the same ideas here in terms of what SPY was doing and what the stock was doing at that time. Okay, so this was SPY on the 9th, and this was Goldman Sachs, or actually, sorry, this is JMIA. So here, we're going to go to Goldman Sachs on the 9th. Okay, so here was the setup on Goldman Sachs. So you can see SPY, fairly LPTEs for today, going pretty flat. We needed a stock to do all of the heavy lifting. If we look at the setup on Goldman Sachs, stock had a nice long trend, pulling back here and was starting to break out above this horizontal resistance level. So we're trading this breakout here on an intraday basis. So stock has a little bit of a, mini test here. Here's that first test on the 8th on Friday, and then it closes back below. So there is some resistance here around the 471 level. So there is that break right around here, and I could probably actually draw a little trend line somewhere here, right? So there is our break of that level. Also, if I add in the 8 EMA, to this chart, and apologize for not having it up beforehand. So how we take the trade as we had a nice strong move here on good volume. Stock tested this level, and then it broke up, closing above this little small compression and then off that 8 EMA. And this happened around 1220. So again, SPY is not doing too much here at 1220. And then we get a big takeoff, and you can take gains into strength. So after this little 8 EMA pullback and then takeoff, that's a nice little trade you can get in on. You can take gains into strength, and I'll probably have a stop here, just make sure it doesn't retrace back too hard. But stock actually just end up tracing back a pretty decent amount. So your only option was actually really to take gains into strength. And at the worst case scenario, you can always scratch out of the trade in a big reversal if you're holding it for something a lot stronger. So that was a nice win in GS. On 7/10, we took AMGN. So let's take a look at that pick. So here's AMGN. And then we're going to go to SPY on the 10th. So here is the market on the 10th. You can see that we had a nice sort of gradual bullish trend day. Let's look at the D1s first. All right, so here is July 10th right here. Nice bullish trend day. Decent-ish volume, not crazy, but not bad. And here is AMGN on July 10th. Stock, after a big earnings breakout, tested, has found some support right over here. Rallied up higher, also found some support at AVWAP and was coming off of that level. So was a pretty nice bullish setup at the time. Let's take a look at the intraday charts here. So we know the SPY is in a bullish trend day. This stock over here came back on the 10th, a little gap up, reversed it, test this level over here. And then the stock had a nice move over here, kind of just grinding up higher, slowly just inching its way back and forth for most of the day. So this was a nice little steady grinder. You could take it in probably, on a little pullback here to the 8 EMA. You can get it on Amgen, and then that could be a nice little ride up and, take some gains here. So that was a trade. And, this stock ended up pulling back a little bit to VWAP later in the day. Looks like it had a little bit of a late day pop. We got some more buying, so that you had another chance to get out over there. Whoops. If I take a look at SPY on the 10th, it's getting pretty relatively flat. So I think when AMGN starts to lose its relative strength, you can also, at the very least, scratch out of the trade. But I took this into strength, took some nice gains on that, and that was that because AMGN did have some horizontal resistance at 322. So we got to be careful about that. And that's actually where it hit, and that's why we got the selling pressure on the way down. Okay, so 7-Eleven. We had Confluence, and let's go to this day. Took this as a short on the 11th, so that is Confluence here. And here is SPY on the 11th, so certainly a bearish day on the charts. Let's go one over here. And let's go to CFLT. So this is the stock on the 11th. Was trying to get through some horizontal support. There was also another horizontal level coming into play over here at around 25.20. So that was providing a little bit of resistance. Market had a nice bearish engulfing candle on the D1. So this is a good pick on the D1 stock-wise, and we are trading with the market. So after a little test up, some nice red candles, heavy volume, and we are starting to drift down, and then we get into a meat grinder later in the day. So Confluent over here didn't rally with the market. We're showing some relative strength initially, and we needed it to get past this horizontal resistance. So I believe on this breakdown through resistance over here, took this short at around 25.11. Had a little bit of follow through, came back, tested this level here, still held, and then couldn't get quite past this, made a marginal new low over here at 250. So there's your chance to get out at 250 if you look at what the market was doing at that time. Market was starting to go sideways, unable to really make any advances at the low of the day. There were buyers coming in here, offsetting some of the selling pressure. We couldn't quite go lower. So that was a smaller win on Confluence, but if you entered well, you had a chance to maybe take some gains, but the stock really wasn't able to get through this horizontal resistance at that time. And you can see after this level here, it's actually had a nice little bounce, and then it had to get another little bit of more supply at this 8 EMA, and then we actually get the breakdown over here on the 18th. And then after that, it's earnings. So that was the short for there. Nice little win on Confluence. If we look at EL on the 11th, where is this guy? Here is EL. So this is a nice reversal setup. This is a really weak stock. Tested at 8 EMA, and then it was selling off. So again, we have the market tailwind on our side. And we're going to go to the 11th. So this was a nice little reversal pattern. Came back, tested 8 EMA, found some supply, and then we started to sell down. We broke through this gap, and this actually be a nice, if this was a smaller candle, this would be a really nice entry point. But we got a nice long candle, so not the best risk reward, and then filled in the gap over here. So if EL could break through that low of the day, break through some of the support at the gap, you could see something going. And that's kind of what happened a little bit later in the day, right around here. Started to see some selling, some good volume coming in at around 102-ish. And then we got a nice little move down. nice long candle here. So if you weren't sure, you could always scratch out for gains over here. But I took some gains into some weakness, given that it was late in the day, and also that the market really wasn't doing too much. So it was a bit more of a hit and run kind of trade. Okay, so on the 12th, let's take a look at the market here. So market looks like it came back to make a new all-time high, and then that got faded. The next pick that we had was SMR. We took that as a long. That makes more sense. So here's SMR on the 12th. Certainly a nice grinder. Was making some very, very nice moves. Let's take a look at this on the intraday chart, but we have to take a look at this chart here to see how we were trading with the market. So after that reaction, we got some nice steady buying. So certainly looking like a bullish day. And then we actually get a little pullback, and we get a nice entry point over here on the 12th. So if you look at SMR at that same time, yep, this is a nice flat open grinder. And I believe we scratch out of this trade because we took it fairly late. I think we took it somewhere on this pullback over here. So we get this little break of compression on SMR. I actually remember taking this trade. So the stock breaks compression to the upside over here at around 1310. So this is a nice entry point on the stock. Advances a little bit higher. Then we get some decent selling pressure, find a little bit of support, and then we come back, and then we actually do make a new what's it called? A new relative, or I guess a lower high, I should say. And there's your chance to scratch out of the trade, given that selling pressure at that time. The market is also not doing a whole lot. Market is actually rising up higher while this is happening to SMR, and then it starts to flatline. So that tells us that there is some selling pressure here, and then we can get out of the trade because the market tailwind isn't really doing a whole lot. Other trade I took on that day was DKS, and I believe actually for both of these trades, I did a live trading session here. And oh yeah, I remember this DKS trade. This was one of my favorite setups, I should say. So DKS, let's look at this chalk on the D1 first. So market had a bullish intraday trend day. Let's look at DKS. I took this on the 12th. So here's the stock on the 12th. Certainly a choppy stock, but had a nice breakout. Nice buying over here. Good volume through AVWAP-Q, through some horizontal levels here. So decent D1, but very nice intraday chart. So here's D1, or sorry, here's DKS, and here's what I love about this setup. So we get this gap up, test the bid, and then we're testing the bid again. We form this higher low. We sort of absorb some of the selling pressure, and then we start to rally up. And we actually break through the high of the day right over here. So you break through this high of the day, and I can draw a candle right here, break through over here, and then stock still has to digest some of the gains over here. And then I enter DKS right on this level right here at 221. Stock kind of waffles around, pulls back a little bit, then actually gets over here. This is actually where I should have added again, but I didn't add it and I made that mistake. And then we got this nice long green candle. So still took some profits. This was at 130. You look at the market at 130. We're still going up higher. And it's looking pretty good. So I was like, hey, I'm going to hold on to DKS at this time. Because it is market's looking good and the stock is looking pretty good. And I figured that we would probably we'll probably see a little pullback here and then maybe get one more leg higher. Turns out DKS started to sell off later in the day and didn't quite recover. So on this long red candle here, I actually ended up scratching out of the trade somewhere around here at 221. So I took half profits here, scratched the other half here, but it was still a nice win. Looks like it hit some sort of line. Not sure what it quite hit here. But perhaps some resistance may be there. I'm not sure. Sellers probably, buyers got pretty, maybe sellers got a little excited there or something. But yeah, very choppy stock, but definitely day tradable, I would say. All right, so there's DKS. Next one I gave on the 15th was MSTR. So this was long on the 15th, and here was the 15th. This was a nice little break of the level right here. Through some horizontal downward sloping trend lines, plenty of room to the upside here, around 173. If you look at SPY on the 15th, not doing a whole lot. So let's take a look at this intraday chart and see what the heck is going on in SPY here. So we get a nice little leg up, we get some movement down. So kind of some two-sided price action, a little bit of fighting, but some lower volume mixed candles on this stock. Now we know at this point we've seen some selling pressure. If I zoom out a little bit here, we've seen that they're selling big dips, rally up higher, big dips, rally up higher. So we don't want to be caught up too much in the rally. Take some gains, wait for those big dips, and then reload on some longs. We don't want to overextend ourselves and holding through these longs a little bit too much. So, oops, MSTR, and let's go to the 15th. So we all know the D1 is looking good. Market is not super strong, but there's still opportunity to take some day trade longs. So here's the first move on MSTR. Gap up. This is called a gap up compression break. So gap up, compress, 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 compress. Not do a whole lot. And then we kind of break through the high of the day right here. That's a very nice entry point. This is a little bit more aggressive entry point in my opinion because we haven't really confirmed that high of the day break. But over here, that's when we get the confirmation, and then we start to rally up higher. So that's where I would do it for MSTR. Holds the gains here, doesn't retrace it too much, and then we actually start to make a new high of the day a little bit later. Start to grind up higher. This is your deeper reversal, and then you can get out here at the double top. That's what I would do. So that's how I would have played it ideally, but we did not get this entry point on MSTR. We actually took it over here when it started to break through this high of the day. So took it over here, got a bit of a retracement, came back, and then we ended up scratching the trade because it didn't end up going anywhere. So that's what we saw in MSTR. Crypto does do a little bit of its own thing. This is also when the market was pulling back. So if you look at this entry point right here at 1310, here is the market at 1310. So we got in probably a little bit too early. There's a little bit more selling, and then we got the rally. So probably better would have been waiting for this LRSI cross. You can probably get in at 160, 150. Take some gains into some strength near the high, going for the lower high here. You could probably take that trade. But we took it over here a little bit early and didn't end up materializing, but we had a great pick, and we ended up scratching the trade as a day trade. Last one over here was on the 17th, which was WDC. So let's take a look at SPY. Here's SPY on the 17th. We have a gap down, and we have a little bit of selling. WDC on the 17th. That is the break in this stock. Super clean break off a low plus trend line through the SMA and AVWAP and had some room to that 100-day SMA. Very, very clean break. So let's take a look at WDC intraday over here on this trade. So here is SPY on the 17th. Okay. Big gap down. Test the gap, reject it, test it again, rejected, and then we just can't quite get off the deck. So this is kind of the clue. So this is actually the first move over here, right? This gap down is your new trend cycle. And then this part over here is actually your bullish cycle because buyers are trying to, they should get something going, they can't get anything going. And then we just kind of leak lower and do nothing for the rest of the day, which is pretty bullish, which is actually pretty bearish, sorry, not bullish, because we can't actually get back to the gap, and we actually can't even really challenge VWAP. We're just sort of getting knocked down, and sellers are soaking up all of that demand. And we're right and by the all-time high. So that tells us that a lot of institutions, they're trying to get out, and they're hitting every ask over here to get out of this trade near the all-time high. And so all those dip buyers and demands, they're giving the institutions that bid to get out of the trade. WDC on this day, we get the crackdown. Then we start breaking down a little bit lower. You can take it, a couple things here. You can probably take it on this break of the low of the day, which is probably what I would have done. You could also do it on this pullback to VWAP. We get the breakthrough over here, and then we get the slap down. This will trigger the LRSI cross. You can get through on this low minus trend line break, or low plus trend line break, sorry, intraday. And then you have a nice shorting opportunity, assuming that the low of the day is going to break. That's at 1140. If we look at the market at 1140, it is kind of a little bit weak, not super weak though. Potentially finding a little bit of support, but you should have some cushion on WDC to get out of the trade. Oh yeah, very, very nice stuff. So take it right here on this LRSI cross, and then go into strength here. Market's not really doing too much, so if you want to be nimble, you can take gains into strength here as it starts to stall for a couple of candles. If you want to be a little bit more patient, you can also wait for the pullback and then see if you can break through this low of the day. I think the clue to me would be this really high volume doji and this marginal new low. Can't get anything going. That's when you get out of the trade. All that volume coming in, no net movement, tells us that buyers are kind of squaring off and preventing price to really move in that direction. Okay, so those are the day trade picks for today, and that, or not for today, for July. And that was everything for July. So overall, we had 27 total picks for the month. We had 15 trades that resulted, 9 wins, 5 losses, and 3. Oh, did I do that right? Sorry, 9 wins, 4 losses. No, sorry, I'm doing my math wrong. 9 wins, 5 losses, 3 break evens for a total of 17 trades. Excuse me. 17 trades and then 29 total picks. So excuse the prior math earlier. I'd done my adding incorrectly. So for my day trades, we had 6 wins, 0 losses, 3 scratches. For my swings, we had 2 wins, 3 losses. And for the time spreads, we had 1 win and 2 losses. So that is the July trade recap. August trade recap coming soon.